all doing today? Happy Wednesday, happy hump day to you. Day before Valentine's Day. Got a little quick project, hopefully it'll be quick, for you. We're going to be doing a patchwork pincushion. Because as some of you all may have seen my post, I finished my quilt top. I did a block of the month last year, and then so you do a block every month and then you put together the quilt, and this is the picture of it. But that just kind of gave me an idea, as anytime you do any kind of sewing project, you always have leftover pieces, maybe not big enough to recreate the entire project, but you know, you've always got little scrap pieces. So just out of that quilt that I did, you know, I've got this stack of different fabrics from the border and whatnot, but it's not really enough to do anything major with. But if you save these scraps and from other projects, it's really fun to put together just little scrappy or quilt pieces. You can always make some little small projects, so I save everything. So this is some fabric that I bought that I actually made a tote bag out of. Did some applique, but this is all sewing theme materials with pins. This one's got little sewing machines on it, little pin cushions, and then this piece is printed with all kinds of thread. So of course, hey Beth, hey Missy, how are you? So I needed an extra pin cushion at home, and it's kind of one of those things that I can totally just go buy one and be done, but then I kind of struggle in my mind. I'm like, I cannot buy one, I need to make one. And then the thought of, you know, making is like, okay, when am I going to sit down and do it? So I thought I'm going to do it and I'll show you guys. And so just kind of practicing some quilting tips and tricks. I just thought it'd be kind of fun, just instead of just making a little pillow, just make it a, you know, a little something extra. So if you've never done any quilting, this is a great way to use some of your scraps and do a little practice piecing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this piece for my back, but I'm going to use the other three and just make some 2-inch squares and then piece those together. So I'll kind of show you some of the things I use. If you've never done any quilting, some of the supplies that you need, you definitely need to have a rotary cutter. You don't need this just for quilting, but you know, it is better to use this for quilting. So if you I would definitely invest in one of these, because you can use this for all kinds of things. I love a good rotary cutter. Something that I didn't really have, I have lots of rulers. My favorite ruler is just a clear plastic ruler, but this is not good for quilting because it's really thin. I use this for alterations all the time. So the quilt rulers, they are a thicker, hard plastic, and I don't know if you can kind of see how thick that is. But what the purpose of the quilt ruler being a little bit thicker is because you can run the rotary cutter right up against it. And as I've learned the hard way, my little thin plastic ruler, if you kind of go a little too fast and too hard, you can actually cut that ruler and put a little nick in it. So you don't want to do that. So the rulers that I use the most when I'm doing my quilting is this one. What is this? Omni-Grip, I think. So this one measures 23 inches by 8.5, so it's got all your markings right here. So if you're doing long pieces. But my other favorite one is just this little, what is this, 5x5 square. So this is really handy, you know, if you're just doing a small project, or you're cutting things on a diagonal, like once you've already cut your long strips and you just need a little small thing. My other little handy dandy tool to have is my cute little mini iron. Is this not the cutest thing? And then I've got, actually bought this at a quilt store. It's just a little board that's covered so you can iron on it. It's got little legs on the back like that. I think somebody locally had made these for one of the quilt shops. I'm sure you can find them elsewhere. Yes, Chris, they are the best. And they're not just for quilting, but they are sold mainly for that. I mean, you can use them for anything, but I use them mostly for that. So I'm going to go ahead and show you. Let's see, Beth says I have one with slits in it, so you lay out the fabric and then still Oh, yes. Yes, because you don't want it to move. You want it to, mine actually has little grips on it. You can buy these little stickies. See that dot right there? It's a little, it sticks onto your rulers. It feels like a little bit, feels like kind of sandpapery, you know, it's kind of got a grip to it. That way when it's on your fabric, you want to put your hand on it and hold it, but that way it's not sliding around. So definitely you want to get those little sticker grip things too. And Chris uses hers in the print shop all the time. The quilt rulers you use at the print shop, I figured you'd have one of those, what am I trying to say, kind of like the scrapbook cutters, you know, where it's like, I figured that's what you would use. You must do more cutting than I realized. Okay, so I'm going to kind of angle the camera down on the table. Let me get a drink of coffee real quick. Okay, so I'm going to cut three different fabrics. Get this situated here. All right, let me angle you down so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to use 3 different patterns, and I'm going to cut each one of them. I'm going to make 3 2-inch squares. So I just cut off the selvage because I want to straighten this up, and I don't want to get that selvage edge in there. Now this ruler has like a little 1/2 inch right here. So I'm going to make sure to turn my, because I don't want to use the 1/2 inch, so I'm going to flip this around. I'm going, because I want, after I've sewn it 2-inch squares, I'm going to cut 2 1/4. And this is going to give me extra. So I'm going to cut 3 squares from my little strip that I just did right here. And I want to make sure this is all nice and straight. And that is the biggest key if you do some quilting, is making sure that everything is laid out straight, cut straight, because if it's not and you go to sew it, you will quickly find out it is not. Because once you sew it together and it's not cut just the way it should be, you're going to see that it's not quite right. Okay, so I just cut 3 pieces of this fabric, and that's going to be a 2 1/4 square. And I'll pull up this video over here because I can't see any comments. Okay, there we go. Hey Debbie, how are you? Okay, Kitty says, love that you're in Southpaw. People say I make them nervous. I don't know what Southpaw is. Kitty, tell me what that is. Or maybe you're talking to somebody else on the screen. I don't know. Alright, so actually let me straighten this one up. I'm going to cut off this side. That's something else, you know, you got to think about your scraps and the way you want to cut it so that you can save as much as possible for your next little projects. So I'm just straightening up this edge, cut that off, and I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to cut 2 1/4 this way. Oh, left-handed? Actually, I'm right-handed. The camera may be turning it around. Is that what southpaw means? If it looks like I'm left-handed, it's the camera has flipped it around. I'm right-handed. Okay, so now I'm just taking this strip and I'm going to cut 3 squares. I'm going to use my little tiny iron real fast and press that. Sorry, Kitty, I didn't mean to blow the bubble. I'm not a lefty. Just blame that on the camera. I didn't mean to ruin your day. Enjoying the left-handers club. Alright, so now I'm going to turn this one. No, I'm doing this the wrong way. I'm not going to trim that one. This one's already straight. Okay, so now I'm doing my third fabric, because this is just going to be a little scrappy project. I'm just making a little patchwork pin cushion, but we're using our quilting skills here. So if you've never done this, and sometimes this doesn't cut all the way. Get that out of the way. Thank you, Kitty. Thanks for forgiving me. Sorry, I'm not a lefty. I could not do anything left-handed. And oddly enough, my son is right-handed, but when he plays basketball, he does more with his left than he does his right, as far as dribbling, shooting, all of the above. And I know they do use both when they're playing basketball, but he's like he does more left-handed than he should. It's kind of interesting. Okay. Okay, so I've got my 3 little fabrics here. And I'm gonna bring my little cute little ironing board. I'm just gonna, some of these are a little wrinkled, so I'm just gonna give them a little press. My son even said he likes the tiny iron. It is very handy. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, we can kind of just map this out if you want. We're just going to play with it. You can kind of make a little diagonal if you want. Kind of rotate the pieces. Okay. It is not battery operated. The iron does plug in. It would be handy. Now I have seen a rechargeable or a cordless iron, like a big iron that would be, okay, that would be very handy that I would like to get. So you can lay this out. You can do it however you want. But I just put these pieces like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew the sides first, and then we'll sew the rows. Now when you are quilting, you want to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I want to show you my presser foot right here. You can see that the presser foot, this is a 1/4 inch seam right here. Get that a little closer. So that's very handy if you have a foot like that. If you don't, I would recommend it. Some of you may even have those little things. I'm going to aim you over to the sewing machine. Kind of see what I'm doing. But it's very helpful just to kind of, when you're doing like a tiny little seam allowance like this. So I'm going to, oops, I'm going to open that up, and then we're going to grab our other piece right here and sew the next one. There's one row, and we'll iron that before we sew the rows together too. But I'm just using a little 1/4 edge seam allowance. So there's our second row. these, got them sewn together. Get our cute little iron. Now when you iron, they usually say to press your seams towards the darkest color material. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to press these to the center because I've got the darker blue in the center. I'm just pressing that towards the center like that. I'm going to press this one out because I've got a white in the center, so I'm going to press those out. Okay, so now we're going to stitch our pieces together. We're going to stitch the rows together. So just like in quilting, and this is, you know, we're just making a pin cushion, so if you don't get it just right, it's just a pin cushion. It's not the end of the world, but it's a great way to practice. And then you just want to line up your seams right here. So I'm just going to put a little pin right in the seam just to kind of hold those together. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and stitch this row 1 and row 2 together. This is an excellent project for kids. Even if you don't do a little patchwork project, you can still just make a pin cushion. But this just gives you some extra sewing. You know, it involves cutting, using a rotary cutter. Now, kids, I don't know if you want to make sure that they're able to handle the rotary cutter, because I will say rotary cutters are very sharp. So if you're doing a kids project, you might want to just have them use the ruler and draw out their squares and then cut them out, because cutting is actually harder to, you know, than you realize. I cut so much I don't think about it, but when I teach kids classes, cutting, they're not used to doing a lot of that stuff. So that's even cutting is important. And I'm sewing on the third row. Okay, so now we got our little patch done. I'll press it so it lays nice and flat. So this is a good, you can make your squares any size if you're, you know, just piecing, if you want to make a quilt, if you want to just make some patches, you know, like this could be an actual quilt square, or you could make, you could do like 4-inch squares and do 4 of them and just make it bigger. You can really do a lot with it. Get my coffee. Okay. So now if you want, you can do 2 of those just for extra practice and make it patchwork front and back. I'm just going to use another piece of fabric because I have this cute fabric that's got all the threads of, or spools of thread. Just another scrap I had. And sometimes, you know, you got stuff and you're like, what on earth am I going to do with all this? So I just thought this would be cute. So I'm just going to lay this on here. And cut around it. I'm going to cut this. I don't want any of that white selvage in there, so I'm just going to cut that off. Okay. I'm just going to put a little pin because I'm going to sew it together anyway. So now I'm just going to cut around this. Now Now I'm going to sew this together, and this is just like a little mini pillow. So we're going to leave an opening, and I would probably, because these little squares are really small, I'm going to leave the opening a little bit on the outside of either of the center squares, just so we have enough to get our fingers in there and put the polyfill in it. So I'm going to start sewing right here, go to the corner, turn, go all the way around, and then I'm going to stop right over here. Okay, so go ahead and start, and then you want to do a little back stitch. If your machine has a setting to keep the needle down in it, go ahead and do that. If not, when you get to your corner, put the needle down in it, and then you can turn your fabric very easily. Again, getting to the corner, leave the needle down, swing it around. One more stitch, okay? Swing it around. Oop. Tuck that little seam back under there. And then go ahead and do a little back stitch and leave your opening. Now anytime you are going to be stuffing something, you want to cut your corners, cut the angle right here, or cut the points at an angle, I'm sorry. That just helps remove some of the bulk when you are pushing out the corners. Okay. And now we've got our opening. Go ahead and turn this right side out. Now if you really wanted to practice some quilting, you could get a little piece of batting and a piece of material and actually quilt that top, that little patchwork. You could practice doing a stitch in the ditch, which stitch in the ditch means just sewing right in those lines. If you like doing hand sewing, you could practice, doing a little hand sewing. So it's a great little sample way to work on some of your sewing skills. So I'm just taking my scissors, they say not to do this, but I do it all the time, and gently use the point to push out those corners, just like that. I'm going to go ahead and iron, and just iron these little edges down. Because that way, after I get it stuffed, it's already pressed, and we can go ahead and sew it up. Just do a little iron there. Okay, let me grab the polyfill. So now, get a little polyfill. So this is what we're going to use, and this is a huge bag for this project. I mean, again, if you use polyfill for something, you're probably going to have extra, so you can just use a little bit of what you got. Get your angle back down here. Beth says she uses the blunt end of a chopstick to push the corners. You know what, Beth? In the polyfill bag comes this little stick. So it looks like looks like a straw right now, but it's in a little wrapper. And that's exactly what it's for. And it's like a chopstick. Let me open this. So usually in your polyfill, if you find this in the polyfill, that is what it's for. Is to kind of push out the corners and push down the filling. Okay. So when you're stuffing anything, whether it's a pillow, stuffed animal, whatever, you want to get into the corners, like the furthest points, before you just get all the center full. So you just want to take it, and then you just kind of push it with your fingers. I'm just kind of filling up the corners real good. And again, a little pin cushion. It doesn't have to be like super fill, but if you're doing a throw pillow or something, you do want to have it pretty tight. Now if you even had a piece of foam, like if you were making chair cushions or something, you can, if you had a little scrap of that, you could cut a piece of foam and stick it in there. I've used that. Okay. So I'm just kind of putting that in there. Okay, so this is nice and firm. Some of the foam out. Now we have our edges and we need to close up this hole. Again, if you want to work on your hand sewing skills, you could certainly hand sew this. I absolutely hate hand sewing. I don't do it unless I absolutely have to. Even sewing on buttons, I sew those on the machine. The only hand sewing I really like to do is if I'm doing needlepoint. But if you're just learning, again, perfect little project to practice a lot of sewing skills. Okay, so I've got this pinned together, just right here, like that. And I'm just gonna put this on the machine. I'm just gonna stitch right there. So if you had, if you were doing like a throw pillow, maybe you wanted to hide the stitching a little more. But once I show you, usually it's so full, you know, the stitching's gonna be down here. Even if you had like, if this was a throw pillow, you're not gonna see that stitching. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this. And when you do this, actually I'm gonna change the foot because you could use like a zipper foot or something that's, so that you wanna move your needle over. So I'm gonna move the needle over to the left, so I'm putting on my zipper foot. I'm gonna move the needle over as far left as I can. Now, you kind of gotta squish the pillow or the puffiness down. You definitely want to make sure that your needle stays down and hold it in place. Do a little back stitch. Oops. Put it back on forward. Now see, I just sewed that up on the machine right there. You can probably see the stitching better right there. I need to trim my threads. But now we have a adorable little pin cushion. Isn't that fun? Beth is asking, how do you do it so it doesn't get lumpy? How do I do what? And Betty says, if you put stainless steel inside, it sharpens the pins every time you put them in. Oh, that's a good idea, Betty. Now you tell me after I've already sewed it up. And what do you mean by stainless steel? Like the Brillo pad things, or Betty, you were supposed to tell me that before I sewed this up. Okay. Oh, so Beth is asking, how did I put this in here so that the stuffing, see, it's all nice and smooth. If you feel it, really you gotta just put a lot in there. I think the firmer it is, the smoother it is. So it takes a lot more than you realize. Let me see if I can adjust that. Yes, Betty says flatten them out, pull them apart, and then put in with the stuffing. Well, that's a good idea. Now I gotta make another one, Betty. But Beth was asking how to get all the stuffing in there smooth. So if you take it, where is it? first of all, as you pull this out, you can also kind of fluff it up like this, okay? But then you really want to shove this in here and fill out your corners of your pillows. If you're doing a stuffed animal, like if you were doing arms and legs, you really want to pack it in there because you got to get it firm. So you definitely do the points first and then pack it into the center, because you got to make sure that it disperses, like it's really tight, because this is pretty firm like this. And this is exactly how you would do a pillow. So if you're wanting to make pillows, you know, you can just practice on a little pin cushion and just, you know, practice before you cut into, you know, good fabric, or like if you spend money on some decorator fabric, you know, break out the scraps, make something like this. So what did Betty just say? We want to made some on top of jelly jar lids. Oh, that's an excellent idea. Oh yeah, I've seen those. I haven't made those. Betty, maybe that's my next project. Betty said that she made, have you all seen like the mason jars, and then you put the pin cushion, you make it on top of the jar. I've seen those. I have not made that, but that would be a really cute gift to give somebody, especially somebody crafty, you know, that if you sew or whatever. You know, if you know somebody that quilts, make that little pin cushion on top, and then put some fun little supplies in the jar. Put, you know, more pens. You can't ever go wrong with pens and safety pins. Maybe chalk, maybe a little tape measure, you know, something that can obviously go in the jar. Little snip scissors. I'll tell you what, my favorite scissors are these little, I call them my little squeezy scissors. If you do any type of applique or whatever, you can see these right here. These scissors, they're curved, they're super sharp, they're very pointy. These are excellent little snips, and they're great for if you happen to have to take out some embroidery. So these are my favorite scissors. The other good thing you can put in your little jar if you were making those is a seam ripper, because you cannot live without this. I don't care how good you are. So this is our little patchwork project. I'm sure you all could probably come up with some other ideas that even if you don't make a pin cushion and you just make the patchwork part, you know, let me know. Give me some other ideas of what you would do if you just practice making the patchwork part. Something I just thought of is you can make placemats. That would be super cute, just making some patchwork placemats out of your scraps. That might be a project I need to do because I got a lot of scraps, a lot. I just wanted to do this one out of my little sewing fabric because the tote bag I made, I used a lot of these materials, and I thought this was super cute on the back. So that's the problem. You see all these fun, cute fabrics at the store, and then you're like, okay, what am I going to make with it? Because, you know, it's not like I'm going to make a shirt out of that. I might, but I doubt it. I might make it and not wear it. Oh, a purse. You could definitely do a purse. Would be really cute and springy. Now, if you got real crafty and did a big thing of patchwork, you could, you know, make a skirt or something. I love patchwork plaid. But this is just a really quick, easy practice project to practice your sewing skills. And so if you're a beginner's sewer, or if you're just getting into quilting, I've been doing some quilting. I've only been quilting about 1.5 years, so I'm still pretty new to it. As I told you how many times I screwed up that quilt, I thought I was going to die. Every time I looked at it, I was like, I don't know what I was doing. I think I was watching too much TV and not paying attention to what I was doing, and kept putting some of the blocks in backwards, and I'd lay it out. I'm like, oh crap. So I did a lot of ripping, so quilters need these too. Got to keep up with the seam rippers. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. We will be also putting this on our YouTube channel, so be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, So Cute by Katie. That way, if you ever want to go back and find a video, you don't have to hunt through it on our Facebook page, because I know sometimes we put a lot of content on there and it might get lost. And then we will also put it on our blog on my website, SoCuteByKatie.com. I call it the blog. It's more like a vlog, or vlog as they say, video blog, because I'm just putting all our videos there. That way they're just easier to find, because I know I have a lot of pages that I follow, and it's easier for me. I'm like, oh, I remember that was, you know, on their page. I can search it, or I can find it on their YouTube channel. That way I can go back and if I'm trying to make something or whatnot. So that way you'll know where all of our videos are. So I hope you guys have a great day. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.